Welcome to Foundation. Today we're talking to Matt Rogers, co-founder of Nest. He's going to show us his brand new thermostat that's been announced today. He's also going to talk about his early days at Apple, where he was an engineer on the original iPhone team. So you've got a big announcement today.
Yes.
Tell me about it.
So for a new company, we've been around for about a year publicly now. We're releasing a brand new product. So taking all the things we've learned of the last year with the Nest Learning Thermostat and basically have reinvented the product. It has an all new design. It's 20% thinner. We've simplified the design. It's one big premium stainless steel ring now, as opposed to steel and plastic. The front face is cleaned up. It's nice and smooth and beautiful. There's no more grill. We've really, I would say, taken all the things we've learned and just figured out how to tighten it all up.
So for people that have never used one of these before, they've never seen one, a lot of people are watching this video for the first time and thinking like, how can a thermostat be like sexy and cool?
Yes.
You guys have done it. Like, tell us about the product in general, just like the general overview.
So thermostats are responsible for about half of home energy.
Right.
So of the 110 million homes in the US, all of them have thermostats controlling their heating and cooling. And basically these thermostats have not really changed much in 20 years. They're pretty dumb white plastic boxes that sit on the wall and are basically a light switch for your heating and cooling.
Yep.
The EPA did some studies before we started the company and said that only about 11% of thermostats are actually programmed, which means for most people...
It's so confusing.
Yeah.
I have no idea how to do that. Like, I never programmed mine at home. Like, yeah.
Exactly. So most people don't. And when Tony and I saw this, we realized that this is a major problem, right? There's tons of wasted energy out there. People are just letting their heating and cooling run when they're not home. They're not taking advantage of all these things we could do with modern technology. So why not build a product that you don't need to program, that programs itself? And that's what we introduced last year.
Program itself? Like, tell me how that works.
So in the most basic level, it's just a dial. So you turn the dial up and down to make yourself comfortable.
Right.
And it learns your inputs. So when you did them, what you did, when you're home, when you're not. It has motion sensors in the product.
Interesting.
And basically tying all these things together to create this experience where it learns your schedule, it learns your occupancy patterns and turns down when you're not home, and it starts to learn about your home and optimizes for your home's own patterns.
So when I walk past the front of the thermostat, it won't say anything, but it knows it's like, okay, someone's in the house.
Exactly.
I should then adjust the temperature accordingly?
Exactly. So it's very much like a big data and algorithms problem. So by using all this motion sensor data in the home, by using your inputs, how can we put together a picture from your home, from your inputs, that make you, to match your comfort, but also to start to give you features toward efficiency. So when you're not home, just turn it down automatically.
Yeah.
You don't need to worry about that. Like, you're living a busy life. Why should you have to worry about is your home heating when you're not home? We should just turn it down automatically for you.
So there was this, I guess it's a misconception, but someone once told me that like if you keep your home cool all the time, it's less energy to keep it constantly cool than it is to drop the temperature and then bring it back.
Totally misconception.
Okay.
Totally misconception.
You know what I'm talking about,
yeah,
though, right?
Oh, absolutely. And so when we were first getting started, these are the kind of questions we had to make sure we had solid answers to. And in fact, it is total a misconception. Part of our release today is called a feature called Heat Pump Balance. And what that feature does is it figures out, based on tomorrow's temperature and tonight's forecast, what should we do with your heating equipment. And for some systems, it does make sense to not turn it down automatically.
So because it's all internet connected,
Exactly.
it knows exactly what's going on with the temperature.
Yes.
That's amazing.
So how do you tie in internet weather forecasts with big data and all these things to create this experience to help you save money?
That's awesome. So this new unit looks pretty amazing. I mean, it's a lot thinner.
When you compare them side by side, you really could see the difference here. So yeah, check that out. It's the grill here is gone. It's just totally flush with the base.
That's awesome.
This ring is just it's solid, right?
Yeah.
It's the mark of a premium product. It just feels great. It's like when you buy a premium automobile. It just feels great.
What kind of display is this here? Because I always really love the display. It's super crisp.
So this actually is a custom display that we built. So we worked with a manufacturer out in Asia. We gave them specs of what we wanted, and we really refined it all the way. So this actually is a custom display made for us.
Is this a circular display here? Are you trimming the edges? Or are you hiding the edges?
We trim the edges. So it's an octagonal display. Wow. We cut off all the edges to make it fit, and then we actually draw a circle within that.
That's awesome.
Yeah, you can't actually buy a circular display. They don't exist.
Yeah, that's amazing. So let's talk about the manufacturing process and how you come up with something like this.
Yes.
So, you're sitting down there, you and Tony have this idea. You're like, I think we can do this. We can build something new and exciting. I mean, how do you get from just an idea in your head to actually producing a unit?
Yes. So A lot of different angles. So one is hardware and electrical design. So we hired a great team, guys we've worked with before, to design the actual internal components of the product. These are guys who've done it before. They've done media players and smartphones for years.
Yep.
They know what suppliers to go with. We have relationships with those guys, like guys like TI and Broadcom and kind of the big silicon suppliers. We have relationships with them. We can pick up the phone and call their executives and get help. On the plastics and metal sides, the actual physical components to make up the product, it's all custom. Every consumer electronics device has all custom enclosures. So that for that you need a great team here. You need the kind of the best in mechanical engineering.
So did you start to sketch this out on your own initially?
So when we first got started, it was literally just a circle. So Tony went up to the whiteboard and drew a circle with bit 72 in the middle, and he's like, "That's the product," and we're like, "That's it. That's what we need to go for." And from there, we engaged industrial designers to shape it, because you can't just ship a circle.
Right.
It has to have depth. It has to have materials
Right.
and finishes, and it can't just be a circle in a display. It has to have materials around it.
Because most people think automatically, okay, I need a heating up and down button. I need because when you look at traditional thermostats, it's they're just filled with buttons,
Exactly.
setting, programming, and all that. That's insane.
So going back to the beginning, we knew we didn't want to have any of those buttons, and we knew that for all these complicated things you need to do, you have a smartphone. There's no need to go and put all these buttons, interfaces on the product. You have your smartphone for that.
Yeah.
If you want to look deeper at your data, smartphone and tablets. This interface is the primary touch point in the home. You just need to turn it up and down. Very, very basic. Just turn the wheel. Learns your patterns. You don't need to do anything else. That's why there's not a lot of complication here. It's just the big number. That's all you need to know about.
And now, when you said you worked with industrial designers, is that something where as for any new entrepreneurs out there that are watching this, do you go and you talk to a design firm and you say, I've got this idea, I want to pay you as a contractor? Is that typically how it works?
That's how most people start. And that's how we started too. We talked to a number of firms and a number of individuals, people we've worked with before, people that were recommended we talked to before. And we found a great guy, Fred Bold, who works out of Mountain View.
And did you tell him exactly what you wanted, or was it something and you had multiple people submit you different ideas?
So we knew we wanted. And I think for most entrepreneurs, they have an idea of what they want. And you have your product vision, but you may not know all the details of how it's going to be shaped.
Right.
And that's where the designer comes in. He's going to do hundreds of sketches, hundreds of concepts. So we did literally hundreds of sketches, and from those we whittled it down to maybe 30 that we liked, and from those we actually made models. And these are models that look like the real product, but are basically just
hollow shells.
Hollow
right?
shells.
Yeah.
Like plastic or metal shells.
So had you figured out any of the internal components at this point, or was it just I want it to look like this first?
So all this has to happen in parallel. So
Right.
industrial design is a thread that goes in parallel. Electrical design goes in parallel. Mechanical design goes in parallel. Software design goes in parallel. So all these things are going in parallel, and we all meet at these kind of key moments in the project
Right.
to make sure that everything's coming together.
Huh. Crazy. And so you had to make sure, obviously, everything can fit inside of this.
Exactly.
So you have your spec. Do you build it out, and actually, are you working with just boards outside of the shell initially
Exactly.
to test this out?
So our first prototypes were these big 1 foot by 1 foot green plastic PCBs that we would
Right.
hang on our wall.
Right.
Literally, we have pictures from our houses where we have these giant development boards on our wall,
Right.
with wires hanging out of them.
Did you? I mean, this has got to be typically when you prototype something, like you said, you have all these boards sitting around, but you have to have on the back end of this, you have to have these AC units and things like that. Did you buy a house and install 50 different air conditioning units?
So we did a little bit of everything. So all of our homes are kind of our test bed,
Right.
And we've done retrofits to our own homes to have all these different kinds of crazy systems. We've built test beds here, where we've built little model homes that are kind of 1 foot by 1 foot by 1 foot cubes that have their own little AC unit on them for kind of on your desk testing. And then
How do you do that? There's an AC. You can't build little miniature AC units.
Little
tiny.
so you can't make in the kind of the grand scale you
Right.
can't, but you
So
can.
you're just saying whether or not turn on or turn off,
That's
and you're
right.
getting the right signals back. You're not really concerned that there's actually a physical unit behind the
That's right.
scenes.
That's
Okay.
right. And then kind of on the grander scale, we have 500 test homes that we use across the country.
I
These
see.
are kind of our beta testers.
Okay.
So
Friends and family kind of thing.
friends and family, and then more. So we actually work with beta testers who beta test products, and
Did you do this prior to launching the first version?
we did.
So how did you get these people to be under you just signed them under NDA?
Sign them under
basically?
NDA. We remind them that this is a confidential product. We're doing something totally new. You guys are part of the team, and we got great support from our beta testers.
How did you figure out who to trust? I mean, any one of these people that are going to install this might have a friend or cousin or whoever that comes over that's a geek, and
Yeah.
it's like, oh my God, that's the most amazing thing ever,
So-
Instagram,
So,
and then you're
so
screwed.
why don't we screen them all by hand?
Okay.
Like the profile of each beta tester, what they do for a living, where they live.
What were you looking for?
So non-techie related. So ones who don't work in tech.
Do you have a computer? No. You're in.
Well, and also, I'd say we looked at various system types, like where they live. Weather is important. We want some in the Pacific Northwest, and the Southeast, and Texas,
Yeah.
Northeast, kind of across the country. And really just reinforcing that the confidentiality is important.
Crazy. That's awesome. And so, talk to me about compatibility with units, because I've installed 2 of these units, one for my mom, and it was like literally a 5-minute process. It was awesome. And then my sister's unit, she had a proprietary system, so it didn't work with her unit.
Yes.
How do you get around, like how big of an issue is the proprietary systems, and how do you get around that?
So with our new Nest Learning thermostat that we're introducing today, we're compatible with about 95% of
Wow.
low voltage systems. So
That's awesome.
That's the majority.
It's up from where you were before?
Which
of-
about 75%
75%,
before.
okay.
So there are always this kind of long tail proprietary systems where the manufacturer made their own thermostat that's custom tailored
Right.
to the system in the
95%
garage.
coverage is pretty
It's pretty
awesome.
Yeah. And the goal is to get to, obviously to get to 100%, but for us, if we can cover 95% with a very easy DIY installation where you can go in and buy the product at Lowe's or, online and install it within 30 minutes.
I was actually pretty shocked at how easy it was. To be honest, I was like super scared when I first did this.
Yes.
I'm a pretty technical guy, and I was like sitting there. I was like, these things, for some reason,
There's
they just
wires
scare you.
and screws,
Yeah,
right? Like
yeah.
it's more. It's not like just plug in the USB, right? Like
Right.
it actually requires you to go and do some screwing on the wall and put some
Yeah.
wires in and all those kind of things. It's more than most people are used to doing. And
Yeah.
once people install Nest, they always recommend that a friend should do it because it's really that easy.
Yeah, and then I love the app that goes with it, because my mom's she's just turned 72, and she has the iPhone app, and she uses it to
Excellent.
control. At 72, I thought that was pretty awesome
Yes.
that she's doing that. So let's get into your background a little bit. Prior to starting Nest, where were you?
So going way back, I went to Carnegie Mellon University, and I wanted to be a roboticist. I wanted to build robots. So I went to CMU with a specialty in basically computer engineering and robotics.
That's awesome.
And
Were you into the robot fighting with those TV shows, like Robot Wars and all those?
There
other
were
ones?
teams at CMU that did that. They did the robot soccer. They did robot fighting.
I like
they
the
did-
ones with the flamethrowers and saws and everything. I was
It's
really
pretty
into
nuts.
that for a while.
Yes. No, I did more on the medical side. So Yoki Matsuoka, who actually we then hired to run our kind of new technology algorithms team, I worked for her at CMU. And I did a few summers for her. I worked there during the year on a robot hand. And we did the hardware and the software for that.
Well, that's awesome.
And what that led me to learn about myself is I don't want to be in research. I want to do a real product. And soon after that, I applied for an internship at Apple and went to work for Apple for the iPod team.
Oh, cool.
Yes.
As an intern.
As an intern.
Did they hire you on eventually?
They did. So,
oh, cool.
So I joined Apple in 2004 as
How
an
did you
intern.
get in as an intern? You were just like, you just figured I'm going to apply.
So
and-
I applied online. I threw my name in the hat.
How was the interview process?
It was pretty grueling. So
Yeah.
a few phone screens for the internship, and I met with a few guys on the team. But the real interview process is the internship. I worked for Apple for basically 3 months of the summer, and the internship is not just kind of like pet projects or like side projects. It was go rewrite all of the manufacturing software for iPod Mini.
Wow.
It was monumental. It was really intense.
So what year was this?
So it's 2004.
Okay,
So this is kind of before
give me
huge-
the State of the Union at 2004. What was the product? What did it look like back then?
So-
there's no iPhone.
There's no iPhone. Apple just released the Mini, and we were working kind of behind the scenes on the color iPod. So this is way back.
No touchscreen. These were
No
all
touchscreens.
dial still based.
This is,
Okay.
This is like literally like click wheel iPods. iPod Mini was just introduced, so this is really early, and Apple was reliant on kind of their manufacturers for a lot of the kind of manufacturing side work. And at the time, Tony said, we want to take this in-house and let's give the intern the project to bring it in-house.
Interesting.
So I wrote a ton of software over the summer, worked lots of nights and
To
weekends.
control the Mini.
To control the Mini.
Why did you have to rewrite the software?
What had happened is there was 2 source codes. There was the software we shipped to customers, and there was a source code that the manufacturer wrote for manufacturing time to make sure the product is good. So
Okay.
each product you build is tested.
Right.
You want to make sure you're shipping great product. So they wrote a lot of code to basically test out the product, test every feature, and to get at the hardware to make sure
Right.
the hardware is good.
But that's
And-
not consumer-facing software. That's just
not.
stuff they use to,
It's not, but it was really buggy. Didn't cover as many things they wanted to. They wanted to take control of the product themselves.
Gotcha.
It made a lot of sense. So as an intern,
So you wrote the testing software basically,
Exactly.
not the consumer-based software.
Exactly, to start with.
And so what did that software do? Like, give me an example. Let's say you have a Mini. Do they plug it in after they've manufactured it? So the process is completely done. They're still on the assembly line.
Yes.
They plug it into your device.
Yes.
And then what does your device do to the Mini?
Plays audio, make sure the click wheel works, make sure the button works, make sure all the screen, make sure all the pixels are there, the dead pixels, the backlight, make sure the quality of the audio is right. All the features of the product get tested.
So
Like, literally everything.
your background is all about QA. You're making sure that these things are not
You
dead.
could say that. Yeah, exactly.
Huh.
I started basically, we call it diagnostics, to make sure the product is good. And from there, I learned how the product is built. I learned about software. I learned about hardware engineering. And from there, when I became a full-time engineer, I was working in firmware. So this is kind of the drivers, the lowest level of the product.
Right. So did you see were you there for the transition from that firmware-based system to more of a OS 10 based kernel?
Exactly. Yes.
Oh, you were, okay.
So I was the first firmware engineer on the first iPhone, the one that didn't ship.
Oh, no way.
Yes.
With the one that didn't ship.
The one that didn't ship.
So it was one that didn't ship that no one ever knew about.
Yes, exactly. Well, people know about it now. A lot of it came out, in the last couple of years.
Huh. So this wasn't the touchscreen.
No. So
This wasn't the Motorola one.
no, it was not. So
that was a horrible one.
So before we shipped, the iPhone that people know today, we were working on something else. It was a click wheel based solution. Yeah, it was really kind of a.
Please tell me you have one of those prototypes somewhere back at your house or something.
I don't know. Apple keeps all
That
those
would be
things.
so cool. Dude, Apple needs to open a history museum and have like
some really cool stuff.
Yeah, I bet.
I mean, if you think about it, a product company, they build a lot of prototypes. And we were working on a prototype that basically was fusing a phone with an iPod. And the interface was honestly
So you
not
had
as
to
good.
like go like this to dial people's phone
It
numbers?
was not as good.
Really?
It was very clear that touch was the way to go.
Did you have that going where you were like, okay, 8? It was like old like rotary like dial. You're like,
It kind of was like a rotary dial.
Are you serious?
Seriously, you can see why Steve made the call, right?
Yeah.
Like, honestly, we can do better, guys. Let's go do it.
were you there when he made the call?
No, Tony was there. No,
Okay.
I was like kind of deep in the lab making this thing happen, and Tony was selling it to Steve.
How far did you actually take the prototype? Was it something where it was just all PCB type stuff laying out?
No,
or
we actually had real form factors that.
a real phone.
Oh, yeah.
So you could have received a call and then you
Did-
had to go like.
did receive calls.
No
Yes.
way.
Yes.
That is amazing. So
Yeah.
were you walking around the campus with like one
No,
of these
no,
little
no.
rotary?
So Apple is enormously secret within the company.
Right.
So nowhere in the company do they even know we're working on a phone.
Right.
So we had kind of closed off labs with badge access, and it
Yeah,
was.
talking about how that works, like let's say there's badge access on a door.
Yes.
You can walk in. Is anyone watching to make sure you don't leave with the device?
Honestly, no, but we're trusted, right? The kind of guys in that core, that first team that did the product, were trusted.
Right.
We had to be, right? We had the crown jewels.
I didn't know how crazy it was that they were like security, like waving you down to make sure
No,
you.
no.
Okay, that's good.
No.
So crazy.
Yeah, so we went on from there basically to, I'd say, the products that you know today. Like, the iPhone that we ended up shipping at Macworld in January.
So when did you decide to make the move? Did you know that you were also working on a touchscreen type device?
Yes, so we did. So all things were in parallel. So we were doing a new iPod Nano, a new iPod Classic, a new iPod Shuffle.
How far out? How far out were you? I mean, so this touchscreen that you had,
Yes.
I'm taking it, there was working prototype sitting there, right?
Yes.
Was this something where it wouldn't ship for another 3 years? Like, how far in the future
So,
were you?
so at the time, it was kind of 2 years out, and it became very clear that this is the product we want to go build, and we
Right.
pulled everything. It was actually a monumental effort around the company.
Did you know it was going to be like a OS X based kernel at that point?
Absolutely.
For either device, it was going to be.
No. So the kind of nano-based phone thing
Right.
was much like an iPod.
So that was going to be firmware type.
Right. It didn't have apps. It was kind of music plus phone.
Yeah.
OS 10 obviously brings in all these other experiences.
When you first fired up the touchscreen and you're sitting there, did you have things that you could flick and start to feel?
No. So again, Apple keeps everything compartmentalized. So we had kind of the touchscreens, and we're working on making sure the touchscreen itself works and that works with the hardware. And there's a separate team working on the UI for the touchscreen. And eventually these things all come together.
So you had no idea that there was even like this really awesome slick UI being developed for. Well, you knew it was happening.
It was
but
happening.
you
We
didn't
didn't see it yet.
And so, at what point did those two fuse together and you
So,
see it?
Macworld was January 2007 when we introduced the first iPhone. A few months earlier, we started putting all these things together, and we spent a lot of time in Asia building
a
it.
few months.
Oh yeah, it was a mad dash.
That is insane.
We worked really hard as a
When you
team.
saw the interface for the first time, you're like, hell yeah, this is gonna be awesome.
It was amazing, seriously. And The interface we have today in the iPhone, actually, a lot of it we did back in 2006. I mean, the designers there had a lot of foresight as to how the phone would be, how the platform would look. Actually, it's fantastic.
That's crazy.
So like that sprint of getting that product done, that first new product line, is actually what prepared us to do Nest.
Yeah, so talk to me about the manufacturing side of Nest. Like, we were talking about this before we went on camera, but like, oftentimes I meet entrepreneurs that have hardware ideas. And they're fresh out of college a lot of times, and they come in and they're like, oh, I'm just going to manufacture this in China. And they just assume it's going to go to plan.
Yes.
How hard is it to actually manufacture something?
It's quite challenging. So yes, there are these kind of contract manufacturers that do the assembly for the product, but you have to be you have to be managing them. You have to ensure quality is great. You have to own the test procedures to make sure everything comes out great.
Why do you have to own that? You would assume it just would, like, I mean, these companies are put in a place to build these things. Why do things fall into the cracks?
So these manufacturers are incentivized to ship product. Their goal is to pump it out.
Because they get paid per unit.
Yeah, exactly. They want to pump it out as fast as possible. It's our objective to ship great product, right? High quality, low return rate. Just every product comes out of the box. It's beautiful. In order to do that, we have to ensure the quality is great. And the suppliers. So all the custom parts that we build, the metals, the plastics, the displays, the lenses, all these things, we have to ensure all those are great too. So we actually have a team at Nest, both U.S. based and Asia based, to ensure all these things happen. They're all beautiful.
So why can't people manufacture in the United States? I mean, I know it's like this is a question everyone, Apple, everyone's Google, you name it, been faced with.
A lot of it is a supply based problem. So we do all these custom parts, and we do a multitude of custom parts. We need custom tools, we need displays, we need batteries, and all that facility to do those things doesn't exist in the US anymore. Like if we want to go get 1 million batteries and 1 million custom displays and 1 million lenses, where would we go to do that in the US? I mean, there are not as many kind of, I'd say, supply-based companies. Yes, you could assemble it here, but in terms of getting all these things together, it's really easy to do it in Asia. It's pretty much the only place I know how to do it.
Crazy. So you have a team that's over there. You started manufacturing these. Like, have you talked about what's the turnaround time from actually taking it to the manufacturer to actually pumping out your first product?
Yes. So it's a continuous process. So as soon as we have the idea for a product, we start to engage manufacturers. And as soon as we have kind of an industrial design, we engage the plastics and the metal vendors to start thinking about the tools and to work with them on the finish and the polish and all those kinds of things. As we go, we do development builds. We test all these things come together, and the fit and finish is right. And
then the box gets manufactured somewhere else, and you have to ship the box and actually have it put together.
So we have an engineer on the team whose only job is to work on the packaging. Like, she's a packaging engineer. That's all she does.
I gotta say, it's very clear that you guys are from Apple, because like every time when I open the box for the first time, I'm like, this is amazing. It's that same type amazing experience from the second you open it.
And you want everyone's experience to be that great. Yeah. So consistency is really important. That every open box experience is amazing and beautiful and has that same kind of emotional attachment.
Awesome. Well, I'm a huge fan. I love the product. I'm glad that we're investors at Google Ventures, so that's awesome.
Thanks.
Before I wrap things up, though, I wanted to ask you one question. We always do this for all the entrepreneurs that are out there watching. What's one thing that you feel that like you've screwed up on in the past that you definitely wouldn't replicate that going forward, or a big piece of advice that you would give a new entrepreneur? And then one thing that you've done really well, they say this is a must-do for all startups.
So I think the must-do is build your first core team right. So we built our core team right. So who's your first marketing hire? Who's your first software hire? Who's your first hardware hire? Like, for each of your kind of core competencies as a company, you want to hire a seed crystal for that area. Someone who could be hands-on and be a doer, but also has the thought, the strategy, the leadership to grow and build that team, to build that organization.
How hard is it to find that type of person? Is it something where you're, in some cases, for a certain position, are you interviewing 50, 75, 100 candidates, or is it?
So for some areas, yes. For areas that were new to us, we interviewed a lot of folks and to find the right DNA. For areas that we knew well, we knew exactly who to go get. We interviewed maybe 2 people, and
So for areas that are new to you, like, how do you, like, if you have no expertise in that area,
yes,
how do you know, like, this is the right fit?
So you rely on trusted friends, trusted advisors. So we had kind of a core team of advisors to Tony and I when we started, like Sebastian Thrun, who advised us on kind of machine learning and AI in the early days. And he's the one who said, oh, you might want to talk to Yoki again. I'm like, oh, Yoki, my old professor? Of course. And kind of connecting those early dots.
Awesome. Cool. And then the one thing you screwed up on where you're like...
So I think we underestimated how hard it would be. So Tony and I did this.
I hear that a lot with hardware. And given the fact that you've done this for your entire career and you still did it again.
So this is not our first rodeo, but yet it's our first rodeo as a startup.
Right.
And man, is it a lot harder than we thought. Like, the amount of energy required and perseverance to kind of man all these different areas.
Did you still launch on time, or did that end up
So
having product
I think
delays?
we launched at the right time. Obviously, like when you first have a concept, you may think, oh yeah, we can do this in 9 months, we can do this in 6 months. 10 people, 6 months, we'll go get it. And then as you look at it, apps, services, software, hardware, plastics, manufacturing, customer support, marketing, you're like, oh my gosh, I have to go build a hell of a team.
I'm so glad I'm on this side of the fence now for a while.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we had to build a whole company.
Yeah.
We thought, oh yeah, we could put this together with 5 or 6 guys and just, we could do this. We did the iPod, right? We could do this.
Yeah.
It turns out it was a lot bigger than we thought.
Yeah. Crazy. Well, awesome. Thanks for all your advice.
Thanks
and thanks for being on the show. And we'll definitely come back the next time you guys have a product launch.
That's good, thanks.
Cool.